Hello, this is Julian with Coffee Reviews, and today we'll be reviewing the Beriti Natural Processed Ethiopia from Onyx Coffee Lab. And there's the bag right there. And Onyx, based out of Bentonville, Arkansas. And this coffee right here was featured in our most recent blind taste test rankings video, where it did finish second place out of 5 Onyx coffees on that day. And if you watched that video, then you saw that we were able to pick out this coffee from the other coffees on that table because this one was on the fruitier side of those coffees. And we were able to distinguish this one from the Kenyan because the Kenyan was a little bit more tropical fruit. And this one felt a little bit more stone fruit forward, which is something we're going to discuss a lot throughout this video. This right here is day 12 of this coffee. And a recipe we went with was from their brew guide on their YouTube channel, a 15:1 water to coffee ratio, brewed at 205 degrees Fahrenheit through the V60, but this one, like the A.C.S. Fernandez, was a coffee I enjoyed more through the Chemex. They are a light medium American for the roast profile. And let's start discussing this coffee. So day 6, which was that blind taste test rankings day, and it's a very interesting thing because they don't have any sort of stone fruit listed on here, and it's entirely possible my mind's been playing tricks on me because this entire year, anytime anybody's had strawberry listed on here, it's been a lot more boozy strawberry, especially if it's been a natural processed coffee. So given that this was a little bit on the cleaner side of naturals, it's entirely possible I kept mistaking that berry for stone fruit, but I will unapologetically say throughout the time I was drinking this coffee, it tasted peachy to me. So I will continue rolling with peachy and just say that there was a nice added peachy benefit to this cup of coffee, which is great because I love stone fruits, one of my favorite flavors in all of coffee. So that's why I placed high, and that's why I enjoyed it very much on this first day. But again, it was a cleaner berry. So there's definitely strawberry in this, but it's a much cleaner strawberry than a lot of other naturals this year. Definitely needs to be emphasized with a pretty decent first impression. Day 8, again, pretty solid overall cup of coffee. There's a little bit of old school nostalgia in this cup of coffee, as I haven't had too many naturals that have been this clean. So again, I'll keep harping on that because it was a very pleasant part to this cup of coffee. Definitely more strawberry on this day, still getting quite a bit of peachiness. We'll talk about that every single day because it was definitely there for me. Pretty fruit forward with a slight bit of florals in the cup as well. It was slightly herbal, and they have listed on here hibiscus, and I can never pull out that specific hibiscus that they have listed on here. I think most normal people don't know what a hibiscus tastes like, but for me, every time I get this kind of unique herbal thing, I oftentimes find this hibiscus that they have listed on the flavor profile for those coffees, on the flavor notes. Day 10, a little bit different through the V60, so it's a lot less clean and it's a lot more strawberry forward. It's a much more heavy strawberry that's coming from the cup of coffee, and there's also a little bit more heavier of a peach that's coming from the cup of coffee, but not quite as clean or delicate. Plenty of depth with a fair bit of body and chocolate, and the herbal component was even more pronounced in this sense too, so I was getting a lot more of what they probably describe as that hibiscus. I'm just going to assume it's hibiscus because I don't know the exact flavor that herbal component is, so we'll just call it hibiscus. Day 11, back through the Chemex, and it's just nicer this way. I just enjoy it very much more this way. It just gives a much more cleaner base to the cup of coffee, and there is a cleaner fruit, but with some slight imperfections, and you'll see that on the tasting wheel, as this coffee is by no means a perfect natural in terms of cleanliness, and you could even call this coffee at times a mixed berry cereal with a slight bit of peach candy, and then a fair bit of herbals as well. Definitely some chocolate in this cup of coffee. There's a lot in this cup of coffee, but for the most part, it's a very fruit-forward cup of coffee, as you would probably expect from a natural processed Ethiopia. All right, let's go ahead and put up the tasting wheel so you can see what we were getting. And of course, we must start with that berry fruited level 5. I mean, it's pretty obvious. We've been talking about that a lot. The strawberry is by far the most pronounced thing in this cup of coffee. It's very much there no matter how you're brewing it, very strong, but not overly boozy, which is great. So that's why it's definitely justified there at level 5. I've been unapologetic about the stone fruit that I was experiencing in this cup of coffee. It could entirely be my mind playing tricks on me, but I put it at a level 4 because I was experiencing it a lot throughout the time drinking this coffee. A lot of other things, citrus fruit at level 3 as well, so very fruity, very strong on that fruity side. Chocolate, pretty high as well, level 3. And then the other things that we have, acidity level 3, and then at the top of the tasting wheel, we have sweetness level 4, finish level 4, and cleanliness level 4. I watched back my Beriti review from last year, and the cleanliness was really high on that video as well. So I just have to say that for whatever reason, the Beritis seem to be more clean naturals than a lot of other natural processed coffees I typically tend to have, so that's definitely justified at level 4. But I mentioned that it's imperfect, and that's why you have some slight bit of extras. There's some slight bit of bitterness, which I think came from a slight bit of that citrus that I was experiencing. Smokiness, caramel, spice, salt. There's a little bit of all of those things in this coffee as well, and that's why it's not necessarily a perfectly clean cup of coffee. But yeah, so much to experience from this cup of coffee, a lot of depth to this cup of coffee, even if it is something that typically tends to be a pretty straightforward cup of coffee. I mean, Beritis tend to be pretty straightforward for the most part, but fair bit of depth. All right, overall thoughts and impressions of this coffee. As mentioned, the Acias Fernandez really grew on me. This one, for the most part, was really consistent, so it stayed the same. The positive first impression that it left, it didn't necessarily improve on from that point. So this one was probably either my second or third favorite of these Onyx coffees, but I do have a pretty strong appreciation for what this coffee does offer, which is a little bit more classic, traditional Ethiopia. Having a little bit more clean natural is a huge positive. Been discussing that with some people that back in the day when we did have cleaner naturals, that's a really huge positive, and that's when I really enjoyed the naturals the most. So this one was a pretty good cup of coffee. I have a lot of appreciation for what this coffee was. The type of person I would suggest this coffee to is somebody that does like something that's on the cleaner side of naturals. As this one, I wasn't experiencing much, if any, of the boozy, fermenty component that I've experienced from so many of them this year. If you liked last year's Beriti, if you liked last year's Strawberry Sundae from Luna, I feel like this is a pretty good comparison. I don't know if I was actually getting those peachy components to this cup of coffee, but my mind was playing tricks on me at the very worst, so you might be experiencing that as well. Just think very fruit-forward cup of coffee with a lot less of the booziness. If you're looking for something that's a little bit more old school of those naturals, I feel like this is a good fit for you. And for the most part, I think I'm just going to leave this review at that. If you've had an opportunity to try this year's version of their Beriti, we'd love to know your thoughts and impressions of this coffee. If you're enjoying the content, give this video a like and subscribe if you're not already subscribed. This right here has been a review of the Beriti Natural Processed Ethiopia from Onyx Coffee Lab. Thank you for watching.